even as we continue to work for a diplomatic solution. We are making it clear again today that if Russia continues on its current course, which is ruining the Russian economy and hurting the Russian people, as well as having such a terrible effect on Ukraine, Russia's isolation will only worsen both politically and economically.
Lada Roslicki joins me now from Kiev. Welcome.
Thank you.
So the president was just talking about negotiations, a diplomatic solution. That, of course, is the gold standard. It would be nice if everyone could sit down and talk and come to an agreement. Is that possible with Putin?
Well, war is never fought only on one level. War is fought on an economic level, a diplomatic level, and a military level, as well as an environmental level. Putin is playing this war on all levels, and I think it's time for the West to realize that we need to go beyond diplomacy here.
So what would that look like to you?
Well, for starters, if we want to stay within a nonviolent avenue, sanctions are having a very good effect. SWIFT sanctions are now something that is a very hot topic, shutting down the SWIFT system in Russia. What would be a better idea, perhaps, is not rather than shutting down the SWIFT economic system for the entire Russian Federation, shut it down in the illegal enclaves that Russia has created. There are about 5 of them at least, including Crimea. This way, we would be able to have a little bit more negotiation time, tokens. However, the military violence and terrorist violence in Ukraine is getting very, very serious.
There are a number of people who come on this show on a fairly regular basis from Ukraine. You're one of them, and maybe not as much with you, but with a few people. You can tell me how you feel yourself. I sort of feel like in this last year that we've talked about this, that there's a wearing down of spirit.
On the contrary, actually, the spirit here is in Ukraine to support Ukraine's own sovereignty is on the rise, and particularly the men and some women who are really ready and willing to do everything to protect their territorial sovereignty. And the spirit is only being hammered down by mainly Russian propaganda and very, very serious torture that is taking place all over the country. And another thing that is bearing down weight on the spirit is the apparent weakness that we are seeing inside of the Ukrainian government. And right now the government, unfortunately, cannot afford to have very much criticism. They need to have as much expertise and support from the West to guide them through this in order not to allow this military conflict go beyond the borders that it's where it is right now.
You mentioned Ukrainian sovereignty, and yet Putin, when he was talking to an Egyptian newspaper, said that what's going on here is that there are attempts to tear states which had been parts of the former USSR off Russia and to prompt them to make an artificial choice between Russia and Europe. So he is putting forth, and I don't know to how much of an audience that agrees with him, that in fact your natural home is Russia.
Well, this is the point. It's the former Soviet Union. It was a union, and a very evil union. So a former union. Putin has no claim on these countries whatsoever. And when Putin starts to accuse the West of violating laws or promises, Putin is the only man, or actually Russia, is the only country on the planet since World War II that has violated all international legal obligations, which has violated borders and is continuing to threaten not only Ukraine's sovereignty and Georgia's, Armenia's, Azerbaijan, Moldova. We've recently seen an indirect threat to Germany, accusing the Germans of potentially illegally annexing East Germany in the late 80s. So this person who is leading a very serious power needs to realize that the principles and values that democracy and democratic countries are founded on are strong enough to fight some history that he is trying to revive.
5,300 people have been killed, I think something like that. 1.5 million people driven out of their homes. There is a report during the news of non-lethal military aid being sent into Ukraine. Some people think more lethal aid should be sent to your rescue. Angela Merkel of Germany seems not to agree. She said it wouldn't matter anyway. You can't defeat Russia militarily, so we have to continue to do this with sanctions.
Sanctions are one thing, but I also really commend the intelligence service of Germany to come out with a report establishing the number of deaths caused by this conflict up to 50,000, rather than the usual 5,000 that we hear. And I sincerely hope that Madame Merkel pays attention to the 50,000 and understands that Putin will not stop.
Do you see any bright lights ahead?
I see bright lights in the fact that volunteers, this feeling of brotherhood and sisterhood, not only in Ukraine, but this international support that we're feeling over here is just tremendous. And the recognition of lies and their penetrating power that can actually be defeated if people are allowed to think critically. That's a bright light for me.
Let's end on a bright light and hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.